Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and begin our board commission meeting. At this time, let's please rise, and I will ask Mayor Penny Lilburn to lead us in Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Please join me as we pledge to our great country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Lilburn. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Please state your name for the record. Member from the City of Colton. Thank you. Member from the City of Loma Linda.
Ovi Popescu.
Thank you. Member from the County of San Bernardino, 3rd District.
John Rao.
Thank you. Member of the City of Highland.
Penny Lilburn.
Thank you. And members from the City of San Bernardino.
John Valdivia.
Theodore Sanchez.
Thank you.
Very good. At this time, we will then move to our closed session. Are there any closed session comments?
No, there are not.
Seeing none, we will go into closed session. We'll go ahead and reconvene our open session. This time, we'll get a report on any closed session matters.
There was no reportable action taken in closed session.
Very good. We will then proceed on to items, item E, items to be added or deleted.
No items, sir.
Okay, and then item number F, members, if you have any conflicts, now's the time to say it. Item F, conflict of interest.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I will be abstaining on number 6 and number 7.
Very good. Those noted by our clerk. Are there any other conflicts? Very good. Moving on to item G, informational item, and we'll turn to our executive director's report. Mr. Burrows.
Okay, thank you. And commissioners, on your dais there, you have a couple of handouts, one of which has some red, white, and blue on it. And it looks a little bit like this. And I wanted to explain what that is. So as you know, at the airport here, we do filming and support the industry from time to time. And our events professional, Monette Mendoza, has been working hard on a bid for a History Channel film shoot. And I'm proud to tell you that we've won it. And it's kind of a neat deal. So on July 7th, History Channel will be televising live what they call Evil Live 2. And what this is some of the most talented motorsports athletes in the business today are going to be attempting to break 3 world records on motorcycles. So we have Axel Hodges, Vicky Golden, and Travis Pastrana's Nitro Circus coming to your airport. And it's a pretty cool setup. Vicky will be the first woman to attempt to break the firewall record. And this is actually riding a motorcycle through fire barriers. I see Jay really concerned back there. It's okay, they'll clean up. And then Axel will be working on 2 of Evel Knievel's records, attempting to jump farther than anyone ever has on a motorcycle. And that would be breaking a record at 379 feet 9 inches. That's a long, long way. Tickets are up on Ticketmaster right now. There's a limited amount, of course, but wanted to make sure that you saw it first, and they are really, really happy to be here, and will be landing on us here soon. So just be ready, and we'll be in contact with further details as we get closer to that event there. So with that, I actually would like Ms. Pritchett to give you an update on where we're at with the new development director position, and also another initiative we just completed last month. So Kat, if you would.
Good afternoon. To start before you today is the recruitment profile for the development director position. As previously directed from the commission, we did work with an external recruiter to finalize the job description, the salary band, and the collateral used for the recruitment. Understanding that you are just receiving this information, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have now or Mike and I will be available tomorrow if you want to take the information, digest it, and contact us tomorrow. The direction we would like to give the recruiter is to go ahead and post the position tomorrow afternoon so we can get this out on the street and get this position filled as soon as possible. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, or I can provide all of my contact information so you can call us tomorrow.
Pictures.
Development Director, I can provide additional information after the meeting.
Okay, very good. Are there any questions?
No comments. Pictures look great, Kat.
Thank you.
Very enticing.
Amber, pictures look fabulous.
Well, that's
Thank
been
you.
the product of a lot of good work here from committee members, and we appreciate the very advanced and robust opportunities for our airport, and so we support that. And so the position, Mr. Burrows, would be, with no objections, I think we're going to get that out, flown out to the public.
Post haste. So if you take some time, peruse it, give Kat any feedback, constructive or critical or otherwise, but we would like to have it posted tomorrow. if at all
Very
possible.
good. If there's no objections, let's go that route.
Perfect.
Very good.
I would like Mr. Gray to give a brief update on the budget prep. Obviously, we're moving on that, and then Ms. Pritchett will tell you about the last item on the informational calendar. Bill?
Yes, we had a Finance and Budget Committee to this afternoon at 2 o'clock, lasted about an hour. We discussed the fund structure, the budget structure, and we presented a report that reflected the budget actual information to date, July 1 through yesterday, as well as a preview of our proposed 2019-2020 budget for SBIAA. We answered some questions with regard to some of the expenditures. We're working on a few more, and we'll have that shortly as well. That pretty much sums up the meeting. Unless you have any questions.
Okay, are there any questions from the members?
Full budget is scheduled to be in front of you at your June meeting.
Very good.
And last but not least, Kat, tell us how we did on our inaugural internship program.
So the SBD Airport was honored to participate in the 2018 Generation Go program. Generation Go is a collaboration between the San Bernardino City Unified School District and the San Bernardino County Workforce Development Board. Working together, these agencies worked with the local high schools to develop pathways for local students. They created academia to support these pathways and then placed the students in local organizations and companies that would best support their career goals. During the 16-week program, we had 2 interns who spent 8 continuous weeks with our dynamic airport operations team, and then rotated to spend 8 weeks among different segments of the airport, including ARF, maintenance, and the FBO. Not to exclude security, which we found out was their favorite day on the airport, so our security team was a big hit. On May 16th, our student interns, Lizette Acosta and Brandon Prado from San G, made presentations to approximately 30 representatives from the school district, the county, and airport staff, and shared their experience. I can comfortably speak on behalf of the students, our staff, and our partners that this was an excellent program and a huge success. It was a great learning experience for the students. It was a great learning experience for us. And we're really looking forward to participating again in August. I would be remiss if I did not publicly thank Tina Nguyen from my office. Tina, is she here? She's working in our office, apparently. It took a lot of time and coordination to ensure the students gained as much experience as possible without having a negative impact on our operations team. So it was a great experience. We look forward to another round, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you may have some.
Yes, Mayor Navarro.
Yes, thank you. When you do your outreach for the interns, how many school districts in the Inland Empire or the Valley here do you reach out to?
Currently, the program is with the San Bernardino City Unified high schools.
Do we have any plans on reaching out to other school districts? You know, here in San Bernardino, we have a lot of talent all over the place, and I would like to see this made available to other school districts. You know.
We have a follow-up meeting with the county and the school district, and I'd be happy to approach them with that.
If you need my help, let me know.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. We thank you, Ms. Pritchett, for the great work you're doing. All right, moving on to our commission consent items, item number H. With those abstentions noted, can I entertain a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, and if the clerk will call the roll, please.
Can whoever motioned please repeat that motion? Sorry, I didn't catch it. Oh, okay, thank you. All right, so we are voting on items 3, 4, 5, and 8. And starting with Mayor Navarro,
Yes.
Supervisor Rao,
Yes.
Member Popescu,
Yes.
Member Lilburn,
Yes.
Member Valdivia,
Yes.
Member Sanchez.
Yes.
Thank you. And we now need a vote for items 6 and 7 with an abstention from Supervisor Rao. Who would like to make the motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. All right. Member Navarro,
Yes.
Member Popescu,
Yes.
Member Lilburn,
Yes.
Member Valdivia.
Yes.
Member Sanchez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to commission action items, item number, letter I. Our first item is to consider and discuss fiscal year 2019-20 draft marketing budget, and that'll go to Mr. Burrows.
Yes. So I want to thank the input that we've received recently from our ad hoc marketing committee. We're obviously in budget preparation time, so we wanted to present sort of a mock-up of some of the programs. And Ms. Casares has done a wonderful job in trying to put a prospectus out in front of you. But wanted to also give you a little bit of context. So if you could go to the next slide, Jen. So marketing for us really came into being about 2013, 2014. Prior to that, it's not that we didn't do any, it was just a bit fragmented because we were still rebuilding most of what was Norton Air Force Base. So professional marketing really launched at that point, and what we're at now as we head into the update and overhaul of our strategic plan, which we'll talk about in a minute, it's appropriate to just look at sort of the background from where we've came and what we're currently facing going forward. So that's for you to peruse at your leisure. Next slide, if you would. So first off, you have to have a product. This is an update on your airport product, the various market segments that we have been serving in maintenance, fixed base operator, corporate aviation, general aviation, air cargo, and commercial aviation. So for the capacity we have, we've made some good progress, and now we look to what's next. Next slide. These are the segments that we've been targeting year over year. We are definitely in the MRO space as we speak. We've got 4 large maintenance companies operating, and the hangars there are full, which is good. In general aviation, we're now in that market. Our FBO has double-digit growth, and our GA hangars are, as of this week, now full again. In the cargo space, we're now newbies, but going into our 3rd year of cargo, we are happy to have UPS and FedEx, and of course are working on new opportunities in that space. The elusive commercial aviation is what we are still looking towards opportunities, and there still is potential there within the market. Next slide. So 2 business units. So marketing efforts are divided between SBD, the airport, and that is the commercial sectors, air passenger, air cargo, those types of operations, MRO, and then in Luxair SBD, which is the corporate business aviation space. Next slide. So here you have an overview of the advertising. And again, this is for you to peruse, but that shows you how Amber tracks this. This is a combination of advertising media as well as industry publications. Next slide. The marketing supplies, you see some of them on your dais right there. Being a branded FBO, it's important to keep that brand in front of our customer base, and so she's continuing additional efforts in the forthcoming year, and also including a contemplated update to the photo and video shoot that we did some years ago. Our FBO has certainly grown, as have our opportunities. We also have a line item under this, under JetX. That is a international flight planning partnership we entered into. This is a global company that we've recently met with again, and they have committed to do some co-marketing with us in the forthcoming year. So they would actually be providing some matching contributions for a new video refresh at the FBO, as well as some aviation promotion. So there is a matching cost there, but they match that in kind. Next slide. Further on, we have continued work on our out-facing marketing as well as our web presence to do some refresh, and that's reflected here. So all of this resides in our FBO fund when you see the budget, and the revenues from the FBO go to pay these costs. Next slide. So here's one that we wanted to spend a little bit of time on. So in the Lexa airspace and the airport, we project attendance at conferences, certain conferences. Some of these are domestic, some of these are international, some of these are in the state, out of the state. And so on your dais, for everybody, there's a copy of our board policy. So this is the current instrument. For the new members, this was tab number 1 in your orientation packets. I don't blame you, that was a ginormous packet, and so I want to kind of walk through how the process is currently set up. So for commission or attendance at conferences, there is a protocol that we've had implemented now for a few years, and this is for any conference out of state. We place an item with a detail, and typically it's on a marketing report. That's how we've done it historically, and that conference then is reviewed by the commission. If there's concerns, those are brought up. In recent years, we've not had concerns, but I wanted to express the sort of metric of what we're trying to do here to gauge involvement in what we're doing. So on the right-hand side, what Amber has done is projected in each of these conferences where commissioner presence has either historically been or could be going forward. And the intent is, if any of you have interest in attending one of these events, there is opportunity. But I want to talk about the difference between a conference versus an industry meeting. So the National Business Aviation Conference is a conference. It's out of state this year. It's in Nevada, in Las Vegas. And that is where all of the domestic aviation, both international companies, but people that are trying to do business in the U.S. corporate aviation market, all come to one time a year. This alternates between Vegas or Orlando. And it's a good time for folks that have interest in wanting to learn about business aviation to see what this is all about. Anytime a commissioner attends one of these, they are staffed. So a person from our staff, it's not always me, but it has been me, Mark has attended, Amber, Wendy, her team, we typically make sure there's somebody there. If we're exhibiting at a conference too, that's another opportunity because commissioners can walk the floor, learn some industry information. The difference to some of the other items is there's a golf tournament. So we're part of the Southern California Aviation Association, and each year we as a member sponsor that event, and that is an opportunity for folks locally, if you're a commissioner and you want to participate, meet association folks, you can attend the golf tournament. But that's not a conference. That's different than what we're talking about in the procedural realm. But we want to give you the snapshot of what's out there and where the money is intended to go and what it's for. Where we have a protocol is, in some cases, we've had in recent years a situation where a commissioner has an opportunity to attend an event or a function outside of state or outside of the country sometimes. And with our past president, we implemented a protocol where sometimes those are time of essence things, where there's a business need or there's a transactional need to be able to do it at a certain point in time that doesn't necessarily fall within the scope of a meeting. And so what we implemented previously was a protocol where the president, if that commissioner had interest, they contact me, I contact the board president, and if there's value, the president says yes, that's permissible. We report that typically in my weekly report, and then at the next meeting, that is then before you all as to what the event was, and that is how it was conducted.
I'm confused. Do you want questions after or during?
We can take them as you go. This is something I want to talk about.
If something comes up that is in between meetings,
Yeah.
you say it's a commissioner that would bring it to you rather than you approach the chairman?
So no. What happens is, for instance, I'll bring up an example. We had this recently.
Did we just have one in May?
So we did. So Mayor Valdivia was approached by the county to attend the trade mission to South Korea. That happened, and it was a sort of late in the game request because they were putting together their team, And the intent was to feature a local aviation company in that theater. So he contacted me. He was the president at the time, and then I reported that out, that we would be attending that in my weekly update, and then he issued a report at the following meeting about that attendance. So that's a
did you
recent
attend
example
South
of one of those
I did.
circumstances. Yes,
Okay.
And it was
Yes.
reported out.
yes.
I don't
So-
remember it being
So
reported out.
that's pretty rare.
That's
It
okay.
doesn't normally happen. Normally, we're way ahead of this, but when those situations have occurred in the past, that's how we've treated it. So I bring that up because from a policy standpoint, if you want to do things differently going forward, I want to have that discussion and
I appreciate
get
that.
that feedback.
Now, you were just out of the country?
So I was.
Last week?
I was, and Commissioner Popescu was with me. That was our eBase conference, and that, if you go back to the February marketing update, that conference with his attendance was listed in that report.
And I think that's where I have the issue. I think verbal communication and being a little more transparent, because at the last meeting, Ovi just talked about how away from his family he's been and how much vacation he's used. So I guess that's where the confusion lies. I didn't know that you were going out of the country
Yeah,
again until I
if
called
you want
you.
to change the format of how we report it or where we report it in the agenda, I just want to make sure that the communication's
Gotcha.
there and the information you need is getting to you. So that's part of why we wanted to discuss it. I got
I
feedback from
appreciate
some of
this.
you about this. And the other metrics of this, because I've had one instance in the past where a commissioner says, well, you're going to pay all our way. Well, no, our policy is that if a commissioner attends, they essentially book their travel pursuant to our travel guidelines. They can't go fly first class and all that. It's got to be just like I would have to do. And then we reimburse that. So if it's a registration and it's an association, we'll try to pay that up front, but that commissioner then pays out of their own pocket, and then Mr. Gray reviews those expenses to make sure they meet our procedure, and then, and only then do they get reimbursed.
And the opportunity is for all commissioners. There's no one select individual. The president doesn't travel more, the chairman. This is an opportunity that every commissioner has the same privilege and prerogative. The burden is that the commissioner speak up, alert our staff that they have expressed interest and that they follow the protocol. Is that right, Mr. Burrows?
Well, that's how it's historically been, but we've got
So-
a new board and a new commission here, so if you want this process or the information conveyed in a different fashion, I'm up to do it however you
I
want to do
do.
it.
I think that, because even at our last meeting, I have to disagree, that there was no point at that last meeting that they were again going out of the country. Unless I missed it.
Referring to Mr. Burrows and Mr. Popescu.
Yeah, so-
Correct.
So what we typically
Okay.
with those, and I'll go back to look to confirm, Mayor, but we really do try to strive to put the location on that report. I'll pull it and make sure
And
it was.
I know exactly what report you're speaking of, but prior to that report, how does his name get on that
So
report?
what happened is, if you rewind to then the budget adoption in the prior year, that's where we've traditionally done this, and we're staying, again, you're suggesting.
No, I mean,
we're
I'm
putting this
following you.
ahead of the budget, because in prior years, it was folks that had been through it before, and that was sort of the custom. So we had that report with the budget, and then if I knew in advance that a commissioner said, hey, I'd like to go to eBase, and there weren't any other folks that went with eBase, we put it on that agenda, and that's how it proceeded. So if you want to maybe do that differently, that's the feedback I'd like to get. We don't have to do it right now, just give
Gotcha.
me and legal counsel that guidance, and we'll work it into whatever procedure we need to.
So
do.
why don't we do this, so we can continue with the presentation. If you have comments or suggestions or solutions on the travel policy,
Yeah.
write those to Mr.
Just direct
Burrows
them to me.
via email, and we'd be happy to entertain those
There's a lot of ways we can do
considerations.
this, so.
Very good.
I want to just make a quick comment. Besides these conferences, because these are big expenses, there are day trips that he got invited to an event in LA that I attended on behalf of the Chinese consul. I get invited to a multiple of things. I can't attend them all from a number of consuls. I'm a member of the Southern California Aviation Association. They have events throughout the year The LA Cargo Association has events. We have the World Affairs Council that's right here in the Inland Empire. The Millennium University is part of it. So some of us belong to different organizations. We get invited, and some of, obviously it's airport related. There's the annual that Wendy and I actually attend almost every year down in John Wayne. There is safety conferences down at Van Nuys, and we met with operators in Burbank. So there's a number of local things that are continuing going on that it may not be listed on here. So we want to make sure that everybody's aware of the fact that there's always things going on that's beyond than what we're seeing here.
And if there's airport expenses being spent on these, yes, absolutely. We need to be transparent. We need to let the entire commission and the public know what our funds are being spent on.
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to go into detail every time I talk to them. In fact, this afternoon I took lunch and I met with an operator to talk about fuel. There was no expenses involved, but I spent the time. So I'd be more than happy to give you every detail I can with anything that I do. So
There's, I just want to make sure we're following AB 1234.
yeah, and my understanding from every that I've talked to, we are. So
Mr. Chairman, I have a request. Rather than us individually submit comments in the spirit of transparency, can we ask for this to be agendized for a future public meeting where we discuss it publicly and we make those
Absolutely.
requests?
So at your next meeting, I can have a meetings, conferences item with this detail, and then obviously we'll have some allocations in the budget related to projected
Sure.
expense, and we can do it that way. And
Sure.
then legal counsel and I can prep any other
And
background
in the meantime, we
materials.
can all think about if we have
Please,
input, we can bring
please.
it and submit it. Okay.
And that's the idea of giving all this to you.
Or even what's forthcoming.
That's what this is.
yeah.
So this is projected for the next year for each of our business units. So those are the conferences and meetings that we contemplate now. And if we find others before the next meeting, we'll put that on the list.
Thank you.
And in the
Okay.
past, when we approve the budget, that's usually when it's an opportunity for people to say, I have an interest in those things, because obviously some of this is time-wise. So as far as Geneva, that was planned over a year ago.
Well,
So it
in the
wasn't.
current proposed draft
Yeah.
budget, I didn't see one trip. There's nothing broken out, so I did request some.
Yeah. No,
So-
but the
and I
prior
can-
trip was on the agenda 4 times. I just want to make sure everybody's clear, including a year ago about this time. So this isn't out of the blue.
Right.
So,
But again, it's, I want to get your feedback, and if the process needs to be amended, we'll do that, okay?
Thank
To your
you.
point. And then, to your point, Supervisor, we'll have the item agendized next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. So if I could just go through the rest of it, and then this helps us, because Amber really is looking
Sure,
for
yeah,
feedback.
please proceed, go ahead.
So the next slide, this is a recap of what projected expenses are. Obviously, with the JetX co-marketing, this is a slightly higher than last year, but when we present this to you, we'll show you the year-over-year projection on it. The next slide. This here is the advertising budget for airport proper. So there's some air cargo media, as well as commercial aviation. That's the thrust of what SBD marketing is presently. Next slide. And then here, again, these are media publications and collateral. So you have another photo video update for the airport proper. It's been almost 4 or 5 years now? Okay. And then some other collateral materials, marketing supplies and such. Next slide. And then here for the commercial aviation sector, there's 2 pieces. There's the air passenger side, and these are conferences that historically Mr. Gibbs and our Mead and Hunt folks that you've met recently will do. And so there is some opportunity there for commissioner involvement. We would want to kind of talk through how that and when that happens. But there may be additional follow-on discussions there. Same thing in the air cargo space. We're members of several associations, and this is a list that we populated over time from our team being out there attending these, but also inputs from our industry professionals and our technical advisory committee members in the cargo space recommended a few of these. So that's where the list came from, and that's where we're looking at so far. Next slide. And then a recap here on professional services. So our marketing firm does allocate some time to this, as well as web refresh as needed. Next slide. And then there's your recap there for SBD proper. I think that rounds us out. And any other questions, feel free to follow up. If you think of something, send me an email.
Okay, very good, thank you. Moving on to item number 10, approving a procurement of a wheeled front loader in an amount not to exceed $130,000. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Jay.
Very good.
What the item before you today is requesting the authorization of procurement of a new front-end loader in the amount not to exceed $130,000. For JDC, it's for a loader from JDC in Southern California. And being purchased by the airport using our purchasing policy. And we're asking that you allow the executive director to execute all related documents. The funding for this procurement is in our 2018-2019 budget from the airport maintenance, account number 50448, front-end loader.
Very good. Are there any questions?
I
If
move
not,
the item, Mr.
very
President.
good.
I'll
Motion
second.
In a second. And clerk, if you'd call the roll.
I'm sorry, I missed that motion. Who gave the motion? Oh, thank
Mayor
you.
Navarro, and second by Mayor Lilburn.
Thank you very much. Member Navarro,
Yes.
Member Popescu,
We're
Pesky.
skipping, I guess you're in that order? Yes.
Supervisor Rao,
Yes.
Mayor Lilburn,
Yes.
Mayor Valdivia,
Yes.
and Member Sanchez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Moving on to item number 11, approve the procurement of a Skymark 10,000-gallon jet refueler in an amount not to exceed $712,000. And our presenter is Ms. Bechtel. Did I say that right?
Good afternoon. I'm Mindy Beckel. I'm the manager at Less of Air. Today I'm here to ask for approval to procure a new 10,000-gallon jet refueler, not to exceed $712,534.40.
Okay, very good. On packet page 147, this is very, indeed, good stuff for our airport. It is an additional 10,000-gallon refueler. It's necessary to keep pace with the continuing growth in our commercial aircraft and operations here at the airport. Is there any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Move forward, please.
I'll move it.
All right,
I'll second.
very good.
And I just want to clarify that we're not spending that amount right now. It's in payments over a period of 7
Thank you.
years.
It's a lease
Make sure that we
purchase.
understand
It's a
that.
lease purchase.
And we did go over some of this in our budget committee earlier today.
Okay, if the clerk would call the roll, please.
Certainly. Member Navarro,
Yes.
Supervisor Rao,
Yes.
Member Popescu,
Yes.
Member Valdivia,
Yes.
Member Lilburn,
Yes.
and Member Sanchez. Thank you.
Moving on to item number 12, consider and discuss a report on the status of the 2020 strategic plan update for the airport. Mr. Burrows.
So you have another handout on your dais. I'm sorry. There are copies of what we have here is our strategic plan. This is actually strategic plan number 2 for me. Our very first one was in 2010. So that was an undertaking at that time. And certainly these are outlooking projections for the course that you want your airport to achieve. We, as a commission, then adopted a new plan back in 2015, which is, again, a 5-year plan. So you have the good fortune of being on the commission when we are set to renew this in December of this year. So fortunately, you don't have to do this today, but I wanted to walk through sort of where we've been. And as you saw from those market segment slides in the marketing update, this isn't quite the same airport it was in 2015, which is what we really want you to put thinking caps on and get perspective on, okay, where do you want to see the direction going forward? I do want to move, if I could, to the next slide. And this, you guys have seen strategic plans. I'm not going to belabor you or the audience with this, but what you see is the waterfall is we have strategic priorities, strategic initiatives. Those are 30,000-foot views. We're going after the North Star, and then we break that down into specific initiatives with timetables, resources, and then it's my job with the staff to align human capital with financial capital to make those happen when you want them to happen. So I go a step further, is then I break that down into this wonderful, colorful thing that you see every month called an action plan, which is how we kept track progress. And if we make it, we tell you. If we don't, we tell you that too. And that's what we've been doing for the past few years. And then all of the rest of our team have an annual obligation to track performance and report that to you and the public. So in your next meeting in June, you're going to see Ms. Ferris's team present our annual update, which in recent years has been a story map. And if you want to have your staff or yourselves look at this, if you go on our website, it's on there right now. This original document, which is excerpted here, is on there, as is every annual update. And that includes our performance in generating new employment and other activities. So we're still, working on the final edits to it, but by June you'll see that right here on this dais. So next slide, if you could. So we're in a cyclical process in planning. So we've moved now as a commission, and now we're in the evaluating and adjusting mode between now and December. And so we won't make this, be one stint. We'll try to calendar workshops at your discretion to really kind of break this elephant into bites here. Next slide, if you could. So this is what I want you to think about, and then you can look at the backup on it. So the commission in 2015 looked at primary themes that they were concerned with. Obviously, the airport, Luxaver, educational operations and business development, and then educational alliances. And you see that bleed through the work that we do. You just saw it in this meeting's presentations. And then at that time, look at a communications plan. And there may be some new things we can do in that. Best practices are always things we should deploy every time we can. Next slide, if you could. Next slide, if you could. And next slide, if you could. So key issues. These were some of the constraints that were identified previously. That may still be present, may not. We'll try to gauge from you what is still relevant there or what we've missed in the current time frame we're at. And then lastly, next slide. You know who you are, but this is a JPA, and we want to leverage the strength of the JPA and your leadership and your organization's strength in the community here. So next slide, if you could. So what we're talking about today, going into next meeting, is an annual review and update. And then in December, that's when we set the target to do, hopefully, an adoption of a new reconstructed plan with your guidance and feedback. So with that, I won't belabor anymore. You got plenty of material. I won't make you read it all. But that's sort of the timetable that at least we've set thus far. If you want to do it differently, I'm all ears.
Well, I appreciate it, Mr. Burrows. The opportunity for our airport is to certainly expand the strategic plan. There's a lot of details here in the written format. I want to encourage commissioner members to certainly mark it up. I think I'd like to move this to the next meeting as a continued item and allow commissioner members to mark it up and come back with priorities that we want to then modify.
Absolutely. And if you want to set separate meetings going forward, we'll do whatever the commission wishes.
Are there any comments from commission members? All right.
No, just look forward to working on it, and getting it set and putting it down so that we can start following it.
Yep.
Not that we're not following it now, but to add more to increase the capacity of the airport.
We need an update, and we need your input.
Sure, and it certainly provides our staff members who work tirelessly here to support our airport operations, and we appreciate all of our staff here. And certainly, it provides guidance for the general public. It allows the public to know that we're serious about attracting business opportunities and job creation. So that let the conversations continue, and we appreciate it. Yep. All right, moving on to item number 13, the review the status of the action plan, and that's Mr. Burrows.
So I've already talked about that. Mr. Gray's got a lot of work to do between now and your next meeting, wrapping up the budget, and then we will have our strategic plan update for you at the next meeting, along with the additional item on the meetings and conferences. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Item number J, I don't believe there's any added items. Moving on to item K, open session public comments. Are there any public speakers that wish to address the commission?
I don't have any slips.
All right, very good. Having seen none, let's move on to item number L, commission member comment. Are there any comments from our commission?
I'll just make a brief report. Last time I looked at the tape, I spoke for 24 minutes. I won't do so this time, but on our last conference that Mike and I attended, we had 50 meetings, and I looked at it, it was 20 different companies prior to the other conference. So even though it's a similar conference, you're talking about different people in different geography. I think the highlights are the fact that Mike and I met with Jet Aviation again, both the president, outgoing president, the new president, and just to make sure people are clear, this is a publicly traded company. It's very large. In fact, I think it's worth something like $45 billion. They are very interested in working with us and investing in us. They're investing about $60 million right now in Van Nuys and in other states at our level. And we're looking at just the Luxair, the corporate jet area. We have available hangars. They manage close to 300 jets. And we also had talks with a couple other companies that want to work with us similar to JetX. And the opportunity there, we're getting on the map. And we have several European companies that are now, in fact, one of them said, why is it that we don't know about you? What is it about you? What's wrong with you? Almost like they were afraid that we were like a hidden secret people were trying to avoid. And they were so happy to hear that we have customs. Like I said before, there's a lot of flights are coming into Los Angeles that we could capture. And the opportunity is to continue to educate those folks who make the decisions on those flights. So overall, very well attended conference, and look forward to it next year as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other commissioner comments? All right. We will call for adjournment, and we appreciate all of our staff members
Thank
and
you.
commissioner members, and certainly the lovely gift from our FBO. All right.
Thank Amber. That's her new
Thank
creation.
you, Amber.
Amber.
Thank you.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.